Title: He married the preacher's daughter. Turns out that she had a secret addiction. Please take a moment to support the channel by hitting the thumbs up button. I am 28 years old. I came from a poor household. My parents were never married, and they had me and my siblings out of wedlock. Money had always been an issue, and sometimes we rely on food stamps to get by. Both my parents didn't have college degrees. My dad didn't even graduate high school. I am the third child of 4. My 2 older brothers went into trade and are doing okay. My younger sister got pregnant at 17 and ran to live with her boyfriend. You can pretty much guess where my life is heading. But people told me that I was different. That I was the only one that was going to make a difference. They said that I showed the most promise out of all my siblings. In high school, my teachers would always say that I will grow up to be a lawyer or doctor or get some lofty college degree that sounded important. Because I did really well in class, I almost became the valedictorian. After graduating high school, I got a 4-year academic scholarship. I wanted to work for a software company. I even got an internship to one of the leading software companies on my 2nd year in college. But hey, what do you know? 8 years later, I ended up with a cheating wife and no career, and a questionable future, and I have no one but myself to blame for losing focus. It all came apart after I got into a relationship with one of the most attractive girls in college. Her dad is a pastor. I am an average-looking guy that got with her by chance. At the time, out of the entire girls in college, the boys voted her as one of the hottest, if not the hottest. To add to her intrigue, she was very modest. She didn't wear that much makeup, or dress in such a way to get attention. She didn't party all night like the rest of the sorority girls in college or wanted any part of being a cheerleader. She wasn't known to be sleeping around with college athletes or accepting their offer to go on dates. I was surprised that she didn't get into modeling. At 5 feet 11 inches, she was the same height as me, with red hair and nice figure. Later in our relationship, she told me how she used to be a teen model, but her parents refused to let her move to New York or Los Angeles to further her modeling career. Her parents would say, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies." One of many reasons why she was rebelling against her parent. Growing up, she had to listen to her father as though his words are from God. I fell heads over heels for her because I thought she was perfect, but within the perfect exterior, I found out that she was running from something and was looking for an escape. She had a dark secret that ruined my life and the life of our 2 children. Back in college, every popular guy I knew wanted to date her, but she kept shutting them down. She was the type of girl that would turn heads when she walks in the room. The only reason we became close was because I took a class together with her on my 2nd year. Her and I became lab partners by chance. I thought I had no chance with her, so I didn't even attempt to ask her out on a date. I kept it professional and showed a level of disinterest that she wasn't used to from guys. That was primarily while she became comfortable with me, and I was doing all her assignments for her. After a few lab classes, I found out that she was below average intelligence. Maybe it was because she was homeschooled or because she allowed her parents to think for her. I started doing her assignment and helping her on her other classes as well. We began to meet often to study together, going on picnics and hanging out. We would look for any excuse to meet each other just to be around each other. Sometimes when I hang out with her, I would notice the smell of alcohol on her breath. I suspected that she had a drinking problem, but the only indication was her alcohol breath that comes and goes. I never brought it up, till one day when we went for a picnic together, she pulled a bottle of whiskey out of her bag. It shouldn't have surprised me because I had suspected it all along, but it still caught me off guard because it was a weekday afternoon, and the way she was drinking the whiskey, you would think it was water. She wrapped it up with a paper bag. I didn't believe it was whiskey, so I had to take a sip. With every sip, our conversation became more open, and she opened up about a lot of stuff about herself and her past, and the reason why she took up drinking as an escape. I empathized with her. When we were becoming too intoxicated in public, we decided to call it a day and planned to meet up another day. We bonded over drinks. She talked about dropping out of school and becoming a model like she always wanted. All pipes dream over drink, I thought. We didn't have much in common, but I enjoyed being around her. We would drink at my place, but she wouldn't take me to hers because she didn't want her roommates to judge her. They knew she was a pastor's daughter, and her roommates came from the same hometown as her and attended her father's church. She used to say that they would tell on her if they catch her drinking. So, I was the only person she could open up to. I went from being her best friend, her tutor, her drinking buddy to her lover, and before the end of the semester we became boyfriend and girlfriend. We had to keep our relationship a secret as not to catch the ire of her parent. Most relationships where too much alcohol is involved is toxic. Ours was no different. We weren't violent toward each other or anything of that sort. She would experience a lot of mood swing. One minute she is depressed and the next minute she is happy. She would cry for no reason, and after she drinks, she would cry more and blame her parents for her problems. She complained about how her parents were controlling her life, and the expectation that she had to act and dress a certain way, how she didn't own her choices, how she had the ambition to become a model and they stopped her, and everything else that is wrong with her life. I would try to console her. We will have sex after. 99% of the time we have sex, alcohol was involved. Alcohol was the foreplay before sex. This went on to the point where I was drinking as much as she was. Her alcoholism was rubbing up on me. I couldn't see that she had become a negative influence in my life. I was on my 3rd year at the time studying software engineering. Up until I started dating her, I was always a good student. After we started our relationship, my grades started to slide downward. In hindsight, this is the moment I should have broken up with her. I was at a fork in a road. Either I dump my attractive alcoholic girlfriend and become a successful software engineer, or stay with my attractive alcoholic girlfriend and flunk my classes. I was doing so bad in my course that I became a C average student. I totally lost focus. I thought I could keep my girlfriend and still continue my engineering, but it was impossible. We were always drinking, passing out, and having sex. Right at this time, I got fired from my part-time job because of my tardiness, and I lost my academic scholarship because I got a C average on some of my classes. The interesting part in all this was that when I was going through my adversity, it never occurred to me to cut my girlfriend loose. I can best describe it as a frog in a boiling water. We were inseparable. Her classes were so easy, so she didn't have to study much. She was majoring in communication. She didn't even know what she wanted to become when she graduated. On our 3rd year in college, she got pregnant. Pregnancy removal was out of the question because of our beliefs. When her parents found out, they cut her off financially, and she had no financial support other than to take out student loans. They disowned her for having a baby out of wedlock. She was an embarrassment to them, so they cut contact. Things was rough at the time. I was struggling with my classes, and she had a baby on the way with no financial support. That was our breaking point. We decided to stop drinking because she was pregnant, and we decided to drop out of school, and I took on a full-time job as a tech support to support her and our baby. I remember looking back and thinking how just a year ago I was a hot prospect, thinking about getting a nice job at Google or Facebook. Fast forward to now, I am working as a tech support for an electronics store with an alcoholic girlfriend and a baby on the way. After she gave birth, she also decided to get a job because my income wasn't enough to support both of us and the baby. We were so caught up with our busy life that we forgot to drink, and slowly our alcohol habit subsided. We went from drinking every day to maybe once a week. It sorts of tapered off, plus we didn't have enough money to be spending on alcohol. We were struggling, and she decided to give modeling a try. Even though she just had a baby, she was still 21 years old and still looked attractive. She gave it a shot, but it wasn't worth it because the producers and photographers were all trying to sleep with her, plus we couldn't afford enough to move to the bigger cities like New York or Los Angeles, so after a couple of months she decided to quit modeling and got a job as a cashier at a grocery store. We had no future. Money was tight. For the first time in our relationship, we started fighting over money. We were living in a studio apartment with a baby, so we were at each other's neck constantly, but anytime we fight, we always make up. I remember feeling like a failure. I was turning into my parents. I squandered all the opportunities one had growing up. My girlfriend was depressed as well. She hated her job and was always pressuring me to make more money. 2 years after her parent cut contact with her, her mother began trying to reach out because she wanted to see her grandbaby. She encouraged us to get married to make our relationship legitimate. We saw the benefit in that because her parents had enough to support us financially and we were struggling. To make matters worse, we got pregnant again with our second baby, so we decided to get married. It was a small wedding and both our families attended, not ideally, but her dad walked her down the aisle. She reconciles with her family. After we got married, our situation didn't change much other than we moved an hour closer to her parents, and my wife could work more hours now that her parents were babysitting our child. I also got close with her family, and her father especially liked me. At first he saw me as a soul that needs to be saved, then he saw the potential in me and encouraged me to do better. I saw why my wife hated him, because he is the type of guy that would push you to use your brain to your full potential. The problem is that my wife is more beauty than brain, so she always felt like her dad was too overbearing and she was never good enough. They didn't understand each other, but he is the type of person I needed in my life at that time, someone to push me, some guidance, someone to give me the tough love. I was so captivated by him that I started attending his Sunday sermon along with my now pregnant wife. My wife didn't like going, so she stayed home most of the Sundays I attended, and I will make excuses for her. Luckily, I got promoted at my job and started making enough to pay the rent and bills without my wife's assistance and save a little to make a down payment on a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath home. After she gave birth to our son, she became a stay-at-home mom for our 2 children. Then comes the postpartum depression. She started drinking a lot. I will come home from work and the kids will be crying, clothes everywhere, and my children's diapers still have stools in them. I was cleaning up behind her while she was passed out drunk on the floor. I did my best to encourage her, but she wouldn't listen. This went on for about a year, constantly wasting my hard-earned money meant for the kids on alcohol. I got to a point where I lost it and decided to get her parent involved. We did a surprise intervention, and the decision was made that she was going to start seeing an addiction counselor. Few months after she started, I saw a change in her. She stopped drinking and started resenting me, blaming me for all her problems. She was spending too much time at the treatment center. She also stopped asking me for money, but yet was spending a lot of money on herself. At first, I thought her parents were giving her money, but then the price of the items she was buying were too expensive, so I asked her who was giving her money for all those things. She told me that her addiction counselor was giving her money to channel her addiction on something else. I thought that was the stupidest thing I have ever heard. To change one vice to another is not a solution. Guys just don't give women money just like that. I wanted to get to the bottom of this. It hurts my pride to know that another man is buying things for my wife. And I was afraid that a person she was supposed to trust to take her out of her vulnerable state is filling her head with nonsense and taking advantage of her. I thought there was something going on between them. I was paying a lot of money for her to go to rehab. The idea that she may be having an affair with her addiction counselor or someone else at the rehab center will really break me after all we have been through together. The more she attended the rehab, the less she is interested in our family. She would come home late. Sometimes when I called her, she wouldn't answer, claiming she couldn't answer her phone in the rehab. I told her that she is a mother of 2 little children, and she had to limit her time at the rehab and come home to take care of our kids. I had to hire a babysitter because she would leave our kids in the house alone and would go to the rehab center. I felt like she had abandoned our children and abandoned our marriage. I can't juggle 2 kids with a full-time job. She doesn't ask me for money because someone was buying her everything. I decided to check her phone while she was asleep, and as I had suspected, there were suspicious text messages between her and her addictions counselor. It was clear that there was something going on between them. I screenshot all the evidence so I can show it to her parent. Then I woke her up and confront her about it. She admitted to having a 2-month affair with her 49-year-old addiction counselor. She was 24 years old at the time. She said that she was tired of being poor and told me that her counselor told her that I was the reason why she was drinking so much, and that I was the root of all her problems, and that we are toxic together and codependent. She blamed me for her drinking. I reminded her that she was drinking before she met me, and I didn't put her up to drinking. It was the other way around. Apparently, the counselor was taking advantage of her in the worst way, by blaming me for all her problems and then using that opportunity to sleep with her. I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped. I did something that I regret. I laid hands on her, and I kicked her out of the house. I was frustrated, everything that she put me through, and to make matter worse, she shown no remorse. 2 days later, she didn't return home and she didn't call. What hurt me the most was that she abandoned our children with me. I later found out from her friend that I confided in that the addiction counselor rented a holiday stay at the hotel for her. I have had enough. I told her parent what was going on and they couldn't believe it. I told them everything from her alcohol problems and where it all started and why. Come to find out, her parent told me that they didn't stop her from modeling because of religious reasons, but because as a teen they found out that she was sleeping with the photographer who was in his 30s at the time. Hell, the photographer went to jail for that and still had to register as a sex offender, and ever since her parents stopped her from modeling again because they felt like they were a lot of predators in the industry. I kind of questioned everything she had told me in the past. I hired a divorce lawyer and told him everything about her relationship with the addiction counselor. The lawyer told me that a relationship between a counselor and patient are frowned upon by the regulatory bodies. I was spending thousands for him to treat my wife. Instead, he started screwing her and turning her against me and abandoning her family. My lawyer encouraged me to file a complaint with the state body licensing health professions, and I submitted my evidence. I also found out that he was married, and I went to his wife to show him all the evidence. To my surprise, the addiction counselor had recently filed for divorce from his wife because he was leaving her for my wife, but she didn't know about the affair. I later found out that he had hired an expensive lawyer for my wife as well. And they were coming after my house, full custody of my children that she didn't care about, plus alimony from me. I couldn't believe it. I knew that the counselor was putting my wife to this. Apparently, they were ashamed because I was now spreading the news of their affair on Facebook and it is affecting his business, so he was using the divorce lawyer to put pressure on me to keep quiet. Shortly before the divorce was finalized, I filed a complaint with the state body licensing health professions. Knowing that his career and business is in some peril because of their unprofessional relationship. She had backed off her exorbitant demands. In return, I paid her a very modest settlement, kept the house, got custody of the 2 kids, plus got child support which the counselor agreed to pay. Her lawyer naturally included a clause in the divorce where I had to agree to not say anything negative about her lover and their relationship. But the lawyer effed up and never asked if I had already filed charges and thus didn't require me to rescind them. Her lawyer had assumed I was just bad-mouthing them on social media, and it never occurred to the lawyer that I was doing much more. When the Board of Health Professions responded to my complaint shortly after the divorce was finalized, I told them that it would take a subpoena to get me to testify. A subpoena trumps an agreement in a divorce settlement. They were happy to oblige. They stripped his license and placed him on a register of sanctioned health professionals. He never worked again. Turns out that the counselor's mother recently died and left him some money, so he had enough for a while to keep my now ex around and pay child support to me on her behalf, plus he was using his friend to run his rehab business. He had been begging her to marry him, which she later did. After we divorced, her family refused to speak with her. She didn't show interest in our children. She comes by to see them maybe once every 2 weeks. As a single dad, I was working and taking care of my kids. Her parents supported me with babysitting my kids. I went back to school and started taking evening classes. A year and a half later, I graduated and got a job at a software security company, so I am doing well financially and I hope to open my security business too. It only took less than 2 years for their marriage to fall apart. I think he went broke. When the money ran out, she divorced him. Oh, and the frosting on the cake was that his wife and I traded notes that helped each of us in our respective divorces. She saw him as her next meal ticket, and she rode it as far as she could. When the money was gone, so was she. My own view is that he saw a beautiful woman and he couldn't resist. He didn't know she was a succubus. I had a better lawyer than she did, even though he was less expensive than hers. Even though the ex-addiction counselor didn't have much, she still manages to get some money from divorcing him. Her addiction sure burns up cash from the divorce settlement. Not just the alcohol, but the shopping which she engaged in to fill that void brought on by the alcoholic behavior. Few months after the divorce, she was back begging me for help to see our kids. The sight of her repulsed me, and I want nothing to do with her. While after it was clear to her that I wouldn't take her back, and I don't want her near our kids, she disappeared for almost a year. Nobody knew where she went, and I didn't care. I was more focused on my job, my side business, and being a single dad. One day a friend called me and told me that he was going to send me a link, asking me to check it out. I did. To my surprise, it was my ex-wife. She was now in the adult film industry. I still couldn't believe it. I am still in shock. I couldn't get myself to tell her parents. What would I tell my kids when they grow up? I wish someone would advise me on what to say to my kids or how to address this with her parents. Should I keep quiet? Her parents are good people. I wish they were my parent. I just don't understand how good people like this can make a daughter like her. Please take a moment to support the channel by hitting the thumbs up button.